Okay, first I just want to say I am so thrilled that you're all here. I'm so grateful for your support and that you're joining me for a really important celebration. This is about more than a book. But before we get started, I want to say a humongous thank you to the New Yorker Hotel, to Ann Peterson, Michael Calhoun, Ed Byrne, and everybody that you see out there and here. We could not have done this event without their generous contributions, and they are making a difference in the girls in our community and supporting Girls Inc of New York City. So thank you so much to the New Yorker. I've got so many people that I want to thank, and I won't make it through this with a dry eye, so I'm going to save that for my closing remarks, but I just want to point out two special people. First, Finessia Farrell, the fabulous book intern, a student at Barnard College right there. And Priya Sethi, right here, who's at Ithaca College, has a huge exam tomorrow, but she's so super smart, we know that she can handle it. I couldn't have pulled off this event without the two of them, and they're also your go-to. If you have any questions about anything tonight, about Dig Your Heels In, if you want to continue to donate to Girls Inc, that's where you go. Their computers are up and running. So going back to what I said, this is really a celebration about more than a book. I'm going to have 6 remarkable women who shared their stories in the book come on stage, and many others amongst you that you're going to get to know. And so this is really about a mission. It's about a movement all around investing in girls, but also making sure that women right now are thriving, both professionally and personally. So writing a book like Dig Your Heels In, I probably should have said, hi, I'm Joan Cool. I figured you knew that. Writing a book like this has been a journey, and like most journeys, it connects back to your roots. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, and for a chunk of my childhood, it was just my mom and I. And so that obviously had a tremendous influence on my life, on both of our lives. And so many of the themes of my childhood really shine through in my writing and the impact that I want to make in the world. And one of the first ones is about risk-taking. So I watched my mom take a lot of risks to develop herself so she could get better jobs and ultimately give us a brighter future. So whether that was being an inner city school teacher in Philadelphia, to then taking on multiple jobs as a secretary, one at Temple University to advance her education, and then logging miles in the sky to get her pilot's license, with me stacked up on telephone books beside her, opening up the door for her to become an air traffic controller, a male-dominated, very traditional and full of bias industry, but one that tripled her income and allowed her to save up enough money so that we would move out of my grandparents' home and she could buy her first apartment. But guess what? The bank decided that because she was a single mother, that single factor, that she was a high risk. So they used that to justify adding 2.5 extra percentage points onto her mortgage loan. That's bias, that's discrimination showing up in our everyday experiences. And that was decades ago. And I think of today, the fact that still women are earning 80 cents per every male dollar, and that wage gap widens as we get older, and even worse for women of color. So if we're not able to access fair compensation for our talent and our contribution, and then every day we're taking away opportunities in the decisions we make, even though we're the dominant influencer of consumer decisions from housing to healthcare, something's wrong there. And that's really what I believe that we need to disrupt. So going back to some other themes, to push back in those situations, it takes courage, but it also takes awareness. And I'm going to talk more about where we can start to build that. But if you had asked me when I was growing up, what do you want to be? I would tell you I wanted to wear a business suit and I wanted to live and work in New York City. So that was about as specific as I got. My mom didn't know anybody that wore a business suit, and she certainly didn't know anybody that worked and lived in New York City. But what she did was enroll me in youth leadership programs after school, whether that meant driving me around Philadelphia or halfway across the state, just like the programs that Girls Inc offers, because she knew that I would have access to mentors, to people like you, professionals, that probably did wear business suits and maybe did work in New York City. And that's literally what opened up doors for me to go after all of my dreams. And that is why it has been a core value all of my life to be a volunteer and serve on boards of organizations that invest in girls, whether that was Girl Scouts or Girls Hope or Step Up for Women or Girls on the Run and now Girls Inc of New York City. I know that the mission of Girls Inc is to inspire and develop smart, bold, strong girls, but it's also we change lives. And your role investing in these programs, it changes your life too. So I went on after school to work in the pharmaceutical industry. Over my 14-year career, I really enjoyed everything I learned, the people that I met, but I still felt this need to always be on campus and be around the next generation of leaders, whether it was as a speaker or a mentor or a coach. And I started to see that friction where everybody was saying a lot of negative things about millennials and had a lot of myths about what they were like at work. And that's really what inspired me to launch Why Millennials Matter, a research, training, and consulting organization that I started because I was running towards something. I wanted to get in front of leaders across diverse industries and say, you need to double down on the next generation. If you invest in young women and men earlier in their career, they will be more loyal. You'll develop them to their potential, and ultimately what you get back in return is their fresh perspective, and that'll make you more innovative. So in doing that over the years, water. Most of you know I talk very fast and a lot. So over the years, I've had this opportunity to work with a lot of diverse companies in all different industries. And I started to talk to more women that were leaders because I was in awe of how did you get where you are today and what was your journey like? And that's when I discovered something, that what millennials want is what women deserve and didn't have access to. Flexibility, meaning and purpose, access to mentors and sponsors, financial security, being rewarded for their hard work and effort, development. So that's when a switch went off inside me, and I felt like this fire was lit about what I wanted to do to help more women thrive at work. And at the same time, there's a lot of media messages out there. There's lean in, be bossy, girl boss, band bossy, sorry, not sorry. And I abide to all of those mantras. But I felt like there was a gap talking to the women that were working in organizations that were struggling to navigate that decision of, is this the place for me? Do I have to change myself to advance? Because guess what? You probably can get more money and a better title and more responsibilities if you do jump ship and go somewhere else. But what worries me is that we're never gonna change the place that's paying your paycheck today. And that's what I think we really need to start to move the needle on this issue. So let me give you 3 things to think about. The first is how important it is to open doors. So of course, we have to expose girls at earlier ages to STEM fields and other places where they don't see themselves right now. And that's what Girls Inc does an extraordinary job of doing, of exposing girls, getting them excited and confident in these fields that have been traditionally dominated by men. But we also need to engage the women that are graduating from school, the women that are wanting to re-enter the workforce. Maybe they took time off to care for children or take care of family members that were sick or start their own business. So we need to be welcoming and think about how open that door is for all of them. What I found in research is that when you have PTA on your resume, Parent-Teacher Association, that you're 79% less likely to get the job. If you do get the job, you're paid on average $11,000 less. That's bias. For women, when we apply for a position or we're up for promotion, they look at our proven experience. What are the results that we put on the board? Yet when we look at men, we look at their potential. We assume they have the results, so how far can he go? That also goes back into bias. So opening up doors is really important. The second is, so we work so hard to get them in the door, well, let's make sure they don't go running back out of it because the culture is toxic. And I always say a lot of the bias that shows up day to day, it's like 1,000 paper cuts. I mean, imagine the fact that you can't speak up in a meeting, you can't get your point across because men interrupt women 3 times more often than they interrupt other men. So if you can't hear our ideas and our perspective, then how are we going to be seen as a valued contributor? And a lot of this goes back to some unconscious and implicit bias. Harvard continues to, in their research, show that people, majority of people, men and women, 8 out of 10, they associate men with career and women with family. So think about how that isolates you. It kind of directs all that investment in men as being like the breadwinners. They're the ones that are more inclined to advance, whereas women are seen as the homemakers. We should have the choice. We should be able to share that equal responsibility. And so that, again, shows up in things like why we feel like we have to work harder, because there's this performance bias that we aren't as competent or capable. And we're less liked the more ambitious that we seem, the more assertive that we are. In fact, if men stay late at work, it's been associated with a 14% increase in their performance review at the end of the year. How much do you think women get when they stay late? No increase at all. In fact, we're penalized. Why couldn't we be more efficient? So these are the things that frustrate me. But what inspired me through this journey of writing this book is meeting so many women that have turned their frustrations into fuel. And listen, this is not easy. This does not happen overnight, especially when you're working in systems that have been like this for centuries and hundreds of years. That's why it takes a community, and that's really what we're trying to cultivate here. So finally, the third thing to keep in mind is that we all need to act. And that's scary. You know, I do workshops with women and men, and so speaking up, standing up, that can be scary and uncomfortable, but it's so important that we do something. Ever since Me Too, one of the unfortunate statistics is that men are 3 times more uncomfortable mentoring women. That can't happen. We need men as mentors and sponsors as much as we need women. So I think what we need to do is all think about lifting as we climb. So that's the idea of mentorship and why relationships are so critical. So with those 3 themes of risk-taking and courage and relationships, I want to invite to stage my extraordinary panel. Thank you. Diane, Holly, Stephanie, Tiffaine, Melissa, and Pam. I can take my water. Okay. Yes. Perfect. Okay. So Diane, I will start with Diane Ryan, and you all have a program to see more about their extraordinary bios. Diane had a 29-year career in the U.S. Army, and we actually met. She is now the Associate Dean of the Tisch School of Civic Life at Tufts University. Yes. Diane and I met during her time leading the leadership department at West Point, and also through our shared mentor, Frances Hesselbein, who is the former CEO of the Girl Scouts of the USA. So I've been a fan of Diane's for some time now. So in Dig Your Heels In, Diane shares a story about a wake-up call moment that really stood out to me. And what I wanted her to do is kind of give a little bit of a preview of that to you, but also share with you what she's learned about cultivating relationships and intentionally leveraging them to achieve your goals.
Hi, thank you so much. So it's a mutual admiration society because I am a huge fan of Joan's as well, and I'm just thrilled to be here and to have been able to contribute a little something to this book. So there's a story in there about my defining moment or wake-up call or whatever you want to call it, and I think it really highlights the importance of relationships. And Sally Helgeson in her book talks about overvaluing expertise. So I came to a very male-dominated place in the Army, even more male-dominated than the first assignment. I had about 4 years of experience under my belt, and I felt like I had cultivated a certain level of expertise, but I was put in this new environment, and there was a lot to learn. So I spent probably the first 6 months with my head down and just trying to learn everything I possibly could about the ins and outs of this particular organization. But what I failed to realize is I hadn't really brought the relationships and the network with me into this new context. And so I was starting from zero, but figured I would do that after I had established my expertise. But what's the point of having all of that knowledge and information if if people don't know that you have it. So what happened to me one day, I came into the office and everybody was gone. There were about 10 people in that office. There was my boss, a peer, some non-commissioned officers, if you're familiar with the hierarchical structure of the Army. And I knew that a big exercise was coming up. Didn't know exactly when they would be leaving. That's kind of how it works in the Army. You don't know exactly when you're leaving. It's a little bit of the point to be surprised. So I came in and they were all gone, and I realized, oh, they must be gone for the exercise. And then the phone rings, and it's my boss's boss. And in our organization, your boss's boss is the most important person. Your boss is important, but what your boss's boss says about you will make or break your entire future. So it's a person that you want to impress and have a good relationship with, and for them to respect you. But I hadn't spent a lot of time cultivating that relationship because I was mostly focused on my boss and mostly focused on trying to become an expert and not working on learning this network of relationships. So here's how this conversation goes. Hello, Captain Ryan. Is the major there? Oh, no, sir, he's not here. He left on the exercise. Oh, nuts. I have a big emergency and I need somebody. He's not there, really? No, he's not there, sir. Okay, is Sergeant Major there? That's the next guy down. No, sir, he's not here. He went on the exercise also. Okay, what about Captain Mahoney? Where's he? He's gone to the exercise. And this went on until he went through every single person in our office down to the driver. So the lowest ranking person, like way below me. And then he goes, I said, sir, every single one of them is gone. They're all on the exercise. And he pauses, and he goes, huh. I guess they took all the heavy hitters, didn't they? Yeah, that was exactly my response too. Where I realized he just relegated me to the JV. And he does not have confidence in me or any inkling that I can accomplish whatever it is he needs to get done. So this was a major epiphany that I spent some time while everyone was out of the office kind of thinking about and deciding what to do. And 2 days later, or when my boss came back a couple of days later, I marched into that office, I told him what had transpired, and I was determined to not ever have that happen to me again. And I started focusing more on the cultivating relationships in parallel with building the expertise. And it kind of worked out for me because I had another 25 years after that, and I didn't get fired. So, but I do consider that to be really a turning point for me professionally, and I'm thankful that I lived another day to be able to learn from it. So.
Yeah, I think that brings home. Yes. You can grab another microphone too. This is the myth of meritocracy, like Diane said, is putting our head down and expecting, like, that's why we're so great at school. We'll get the A's, we check all the boxes, and not looking around and engaging and leveraging those relationships. And Diane is extraordinary at it. I mean, I think because of that, you've spent a huge amount of time not only reaching up, managing up, but lifting as you climb too, mentoring women and men everywhere. And that takes a lot of time. And I think that's one of the things we recognize. Stephanie. So, yeah, surprise. So with Stephanie is the Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer of the global marketing organization of BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset management firm. Stephanie and I bonded because of our shared motherhood of daughters named Addison. But with Stephanie, what I really admire is how she takes risks, and she has so much perseverance and grit and creativity in these roles where Stephanie is very visible and working for the most powerful people in her organization, predominantly men. And so, Steph, what I wanted you to share is really about this approach that you have to taking risks in your career. You went from operations to marketing, kind of reinventing yourself, and how you figured out how to bring unique value to your business and have that confidence. Thanks.
Can we just give another a round of applause for Joan? So listen, story is I'm where I am mainly because of the amazing sponsors, male sponsors I've had in my career. And every large shift, and I've been through 4 main shifts in my career, which are noted in the book, but where the shifts have been the result of male sponsors, particularly the president of BlackRock, the prior co-president of BlackRock, and now the chief marketing officer of BlackRock. Really helped propel my career in taking risk but being comfortable with the unknown, which for women is really hard. We like to have all the answers, we're more conservative, and in 2 of my larger roles at the firm, I was sort of given a blank sheet of paper, and I got to write what I wanted that role to be on that piece of paper. So I think it's coming, it's being comfortable but being able to craft your own story in a way and having the right confidence that allows you to fill that paper with the role you want to create and the impact you want to have. And so for me, that's been really helpful. But I have to say, I've always followed people, and I think that that's really important because even when the role was unknown, I was following a leader that I believed in that gave me the freedom to really make it what it was. So, and then I would lastly say, you have to go with your gut. And in all the shifts that I've done, if it didn't feel right, I didn't do it. And you just have to trust your gut with, if you're going to follow a good leader, then the role is going to come with you, and you're going to be able to have the right impact. And then as it relates to the second question, which is, being clear, right, about your unique value prop, I would say over the last 5 years, it's been really critical to me is creating that narrative, right? And everyone, and especially women, you have to be really conscious of what your story is and being articulate around your value. And so it was helpful for me to sort of take those 4 main pivots of my career and weave them together in a very short narrative that shows the value and shows your story of how you actually, how you're authentic, but what's the value that you're creating. So, I've worked with clients, I've worked on operating teams, I'm now, in marketing, I'm a connector to deliver the firm to any constituent. And being able to articulate and see your audience has allowed other people to really see the value, but you have to take the time to craft it and to hone it so that it's clear for others.
So wonderful. Thank you, Steph. I'm so glad you said that about your gut because I've seen you do that. And I think when you're talented and you're hardworking, a lot of people do want you on their team. They want the workhorse, right? So sometimes you can be pulled in different directions and that can be flattering. And I think what you're saying too is we all deserve to have the time to think within ourselves, what do we really want to do? What do we really believe is the strength that gives us energy? Sometimes we have strengths that don't give us energy, but we pursue them anyway because school told us to do that in work. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Steph. Tiffaine. Yes, you're laughing, yes. Thank you. So Tiffaine is currently an MBA candidate at one of the top schools in the country, NYU's Stern School of Business. And what I know about her story is it's going to resonate with a lot of you, particularly those of you that are early in your career, because Tiffaine was always that rock star. She was that stellar student that was known in her communities, that when she got her first job, everybody knew Tiffaine, everybody counted on her. Uh-oh, did I learn my, okay. Oh, do you hear me now? No? Right in my dramatic Tiffaine, okay. Okay, I'll just talk loud. What did you ask me, Alex? I'll go ahead. I don't think that they have to come and bring another one. Yeah, okay. All right, back to Tiffaine. So, a lot of people counted on her. And there was a time where she had a real disappointment professionally that she had no control over. And so when you are early in your career, those setbacks can really feel devastating. So this was also happening at a time when the world around her felt really dark and disappointing and actually dangerous. And so we would talk about how she felt like she had to wear the mask of Tiffaine, going to work, the star that was always ready to help, that everybody could count on, until she couldn't wear that mask anymore. And so what I asked Tiffaine to share is a little bit about how she mustered up the courage to be her authentic self, and really how to inspire all of us to show up that way too.
Thank you, Joan. First, just want to say thank you for having me here and for all of your advocacy for women. So the story that Joan mentioned, started with disengagement at work, and then led into just not bringing myself to work. And I'll start with the lesson. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's a gradual process. I haven't fully figured it out yet. And bringing my full self to work, it means presenting myself and expressing myself in a way that feels free to me, whether that be through my style, whether that be through my speech, the way that I lead, without being negatively stereotyped, specifically as an aggressive Black woman, which is a fear, I think, that is culminated within myself through media messages or just telling myself that. And how I got through it was 3 ways. So the first was by first finding mentors and sponsors that modeled what it meant to bring your full self to work, and giving me the space and encouragement to do that. And 2 people come to mind. One was one of the few openly gay men at my company, and he was such a great mentor in that he constantly pushed me to be myself. He constantly gave me ideas or examples in how he overcame his own struggles at the company to freely express himself. And with him doing that and modeling that, that gave me the courage to step out and be more of myself. The other was a more senior sponsor who, when I presented a challenge to him within the company regarding diversity and inclusion, he looked at me and asked, "What are you going to do about it?" And I thought that that was the most empowering way to just get me started on this journey of diversity and inclusion within the workplace, but it also jump-started my engagement, which I had lost given the politics that Joan mentioned within my story. The second was feedback. So I had another good mentor when she was getting ready to leave the company. She said to me, "You need to do more." And I said, "But I'm worried about being too aggressive." And she said, "Has anybody ever explicitly said that to you?" And I said, "No." She said, "Exactly, so do more." And the other came from an intern that I had the opportunity to mentor and manage for 10 weeks. And she said to me, "I don't feel like I know you. I don't feel like I've connected with you over the summer." And that was eye-opening to me, because I realized at that moment that without allowing people to see the true me, that no one would be able to trust me, and I wouldn't be the best leader that I could be. And the third thing, sorry, I have to take a look at my notes. This is going to be your book. She has a book in her, yes. The third thing was really my psychological safety. So I took a test called the Hogan Assessment, which is basically a personality test to see what type of leader you would be and how you would fit into kind of like the archetype at the company. They've since done away with the test, which is a great idea. But what it showed me was I was bringing one person to work and a totally different person at home. And so when the assessment results came out and my boss took a look at them, it's like, "I don't know how to lead this because I don't know this person." And that was such an eye-opening moment for me. I was distraught because I felt like I had been living with this mask on constantly. And it was at that moment, I was at the end of my time at my last company, it was at that moment that I made the decision to no longer wear that mask. And the lesson there is to be very intentional about the spaces that you choose to enter. And so choosing to pursue an MBA at NYC was very intentional. I had to make sure that the community would be open to who I am, it would be open to my perspectives, and I wouldn't feel like I had to walk in with that mask on.
I mean, now you can see why Tiffaine has inspired me from the moment that I met her. I mean, I just want to double click on one of the biggest things there is how scary it is to be vulnerable and be yourself. And it's actually not all in our head that we think everyone's going to judge us as being assertive or aggressive or whatever you think it is. It's out there. That bias exists. And when you hit on feedback, I didn't even know you were going to say this, but feedback is one of the most critical things that women need to go after. You know, only 12% of women believe that they have been given solid, direct feedback about their performance and are satisfied with it. So we really have to dig for that. I mean, I have plenty of women I interviewed for the book that would say, that were rising stars, and they'd say, oh, my boss always says I'm doing a great job. So then what? So then what? Heather Jackson in the book pushes back on her senior VP and says, okay, so then I could have the CEO job tomorrow, right? And he says, well, okay. So we have to sometimes push to get that. So thank you, Tiffaine, for sharing your story. I am going to move into a little bit more about Girls Inc of New York City, the extraordinary organization that we're supporting tonight. So Pam Maraldo, our fearless CEO of Girls Inc of New York City, you are extraordinary at bringing to light why this time is so critical for what we do. So I wanted you to share why organizations like Girls Inc are so vital to society at this juncture.
Joan, first I want to say thank you. She's a fabulous board member. Thank you for your support, and thank you for co-hosting this event. Really, really greatly appreciated. All of you, thank you. So, you don't need a Harris poll to know this, but 3 of the main 5 issues on Americans' mind, according to the most recent poll, are poverty, healthcare, and race relations. The other 2 are there's no trust in government and immigration, but we don't deal with them as directly, even though we do in some ways. So poverty, let's start with that. We serve girls from the poorest communities in New York City. And not so many, if you look up the statistics, over the last 40 years, about 65–70% of girls from low-income communities graduate from high school, and only about 9% graduate from college. So we're in a right way, a rarefied group, because 100% of the girls in our programs, girls of color from poor communities around the city, graduate from high school and are admitted to college. Now that's a big deal. And what we do is we have comprehensive programs, and we provide academic enrichment and life skills so that 100% go on to college, and then we teach them things like financial literacy, which is also very important. You know, if you're worried about paying rent, you grow up in a family where maybe groceries and putting food on the table is an issue, and if you're poor, those things matter. We have a heavy emphasis on financial literacy. So one of my favorite stories in the world, if you've had drinks or lunch with me, you've heard it, so forgive me, is the investment challenge. So we take girls in our programs, and 1 year, not too long ago, ING, now Voya, gave us $50,000 real dollars for girls to invest. Actually invest in the stock market. At the end of, and they made their own financial decisions, we coached them, but they made their own decisions, and at the end of 1 year, true story, they had a 54% rate of return. Now, when you consider, it is a big deal, when you consider that, you know, the stock market is reaching all-time highs. People say, well, I don't know about government and the administration, but then the stock market is approaching an all-time high. We have to consider only 50% of the American people are even invested in the stock market. When you consider the girls' experience and a 54% rate of return in that context, it's life-transforming. We had a lot of the girls in that program go on to major in economics or finance in college. So that's poverty. The second thing on Americans' minds, again, is healthcare. We have girls that come from poor cities, poor communities, and so of course, trauma is an issue. All the things that go along with poverty. So it affects, many times there's withdrawal, lack of attention, anxiety disorder, substance abuse, and the list goes on and on, domestic violence at home. I always say, I stopped watching Law and Order. SVU, even though I like Mariska Hargitay, because it was too much. I couldn't stand all these things happening to children. It upset me, and I couldn't sleep. So I stopped watching it. Then I started working with Girls Inc, and I saw where they got those stories. They're not so far-fetched. So healthcare and teaching them the mind-body connection, teach them how the mind and body are connected, and how to recognize anxiety, how to recognize depression, and what to do about it, strategies that you can use every morning, every day that work, and strategies like yoga and meditation, as well as morning exercises, physical nutrition, and the whole comprehensive range. And we're really very proud of our mind-body program, and it's proving to be extremely helpful. And then the third thing is race relations. Obviously, that's on Americans' minds right now. And for us, having 100% of the girls in our programs go on to college is only a starting point. Because education is still a major tool for advancement in this country, and that's true of girls of color as well. That's the first step. But recently, we have, and I think you're here tonight, raise your hand, gotten very significant funding from Macquarie. From Macquarie Bank. Are you here, Meredith? Where are you? The audience of Macquarie? We're grateful for that because Macquarie said, look, over the last 40 years, they knew the statistics. We had a moderate increase in the number of kids from low-income communities getting into college. No increase in the rate of graduation. 40 years ago, 9%, and now it's still 9%, if you can believe that. So Macquarie said, Girls Inc, you're doing such a great job in high school, why don't you import that model to college and see if you can help increase the rate of graduation for girls of color. So those kinds of things, and our curriculum is great, it's research-based, but the thing that really makes it work is we hire women from the communities we serve as mentors so that the girls see people teaching them every day who look like them. They reflect those communities. And they have a model for success every day that says, I made it, so can you. And so those are the kinds of things we're doing to help, move the agenda and improve the conversation around race relations, as well as making sure that women of color are represented on our boards, on our advisory committees, and as honorees for our organization for the contributions and the work that they've done. So I think probably we serve about 2% of all the girls in New York City. It's not a huge impact on the market, but we'll serve 10,000 girls by 2020. And one of my other favorite things to say is as a little expression by Margaret Mead, you probably heard. She said, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. So we're delighted to be making that contribution.
Can I ask all of our Girls Inc New York City board and junior board members to stand up? I just want to acknowledge their leadership too. So we have a lot of leaders representing. And you're going to meet Melissa, but Andrea, also a member of our staff, is back there too. I can do the plug without Pam, but we have a huge gala next month, and that's really our annual fundraiser. And we are going to reach 10,000 girls by 2020, and so we need your support. So I'm going to come back and share a little bit more in a moment about what it's truly like to be inside a program with Girls Inc. But I want to move over to Holly Lindvall, who is Senior Vice President of Human Resources and Diversity at the beloved baseball team, the New York Mets. If they're not your baseball team, then yes. For me, if I was working at the Mets, I'd want Holly to be my work wife. She has been really my brain partner for the past several years. I've been so inspired and challenged by her. Her work ethic is unparalleled. But also about Holly, she's a fierce technical expert in human resources. So she gets how hard it is for us to change the systems, the policies, the programs, for us to make work for us as women, right? She also really loves sports and baseball. But equally with those two things, she also really respects and values culture. So that's why she and her team have been leading some bold culture initiatives in the organization. And what I asked Holly to speak about is that when you're trying to lead these non-traditional initiatives in a very traditional organization, how do you get your male leadership on board, your executives to sponsor progressive ideas?
First of all, I want to say to Addie, you have a really cool mom, and you've been on such great behavior. And to Alex, so my story is a little bit different. I spent the first 15 years of my career in the hospitality business, and so we never talked about diversity or gender diversity because white men are in the far minority. We have power women running our housekeeping departments, and diversity is what makes the hospitality business run. And so, as I was looking at my next career transition, I had the fortunate opportunity to have 2 job offers at the same time. One from a longtime recruiter friend to go and work for an international bike company, and a job to go work for the New York Mets. And so as I'm considering my options, I turned to my lifelong recruiting friend and said, there's just something in my gut that says going to the New York Mets would be really cool. And she said that sports is the worst place in the world for women. So now I'm going. Goodbye, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and give it a try. So I get my new hire packet, which you all have looked through your handbooks. And as I'm reading through the policies, the policy on harassment had been written in 1984 during the Pregnancy Work Act. Now this is 2013. And most of you haven't even heard of the Pregnancy Work Act because it happened so long ago. And in there it listed examples. It said, employees of the New York Mets aren't going to call Mexicans dirty. And we're not going to say to women, I want to lick you like a popsicle. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm leading the HR department and this is where I'm going and what kind of risk did I take? So my first week at work, I report to the chief legal officer who has become my sponsor and my friend and my advocate and the person that helps me do everything I do at work. I said, so just one question, would anybody be open to looking at the policies that we're handing all of our new employees? I said, because this is the one that I read on my first day of work and it was like, we send that to people, so I think it's about those little moments that I've been able to infuse in the culture. We also had less than 10% women working at the time, and certainly no one in senior leadership. And so as we started to have change, I was lucky enough to be able to meet people like Claire and Allie, who are here with me tonight, who are the reason that I love going to work every day, because they are strong, smart, amazing women that we've been able to bring into the organization to help change the culture, one person by one person. So that's my story. Yeah.
You'll read more about this. You'll read more about this in the book as well about Holly. Is that think about the thing that you can give out into the world, even outside of your company. And she dedicates her time also to the Women's Sports Foundation, helping women that were athletes transition into a career, whether they're out of college or they played professionally and they're in their 40s and they never had a traditional job experience. So it's really extraordinary. So last but not least, Melissa DeAndrea is our Vice President of Programs at Girls Inc. She hears me say this all the time, but there is no one on this planet, I feel like, as wise as Melissa about the issues that are hitting our girls today. I mean, how she can tackle and talk about everything from identity to confidence, all of it. It makes my job a lot easier, but it also makes me a lot more determined to make a difference. So, Melissa, I know that Girls Inc of New York City is transformative, and I've seen it in action, but I want you to tell everybody what program that we have that you believe is the most powerful and why.
Thank you. That's quite an introduction, and I hope I live up to it in some way. But, I'm not going to go full-on politician. I promise you I will answer the question at some point. But, first of all, I think that it's the work that we do gets incredibly easier when we have board members and representatives like Joan who sing our praises to everyone she meets, and I think that that's incredible, and that's so important to the work that we do and to getting our name out there more, and for you all to learn about the important work that Girls Inc of New York City does. I don't know, so I think that, I'm a little biased, and I think that all of our programming is incredible, right? But I don't know if when you were outside, if any of you, while you were having cocktails, if you were looking at the Girls Inc Bill of Rights were out there, and we have 6. So I think there's some core tenets of our programming that really make our programming spectacular and transformative, and it isn't only about the content, and it isn't specifically about the content, although we have some really high quality content that Pam spoke about, some of it already. So the 6th principle on the Bill of Rights that really aligns with this whole conversation tonight is girls have the right to prepare for interesting work and economic independence. And for a room of professionals like all of you, that sounds great, and we all want that for ourselves. For a 6th grader in the South Bronx whose family may have never gone on to college or graduated high school, who only knows of careers in their communities that are working for someone else, people are not doing interesting work, and their definition of work isn't necessarily defined by interesting. You work to pay the bills. For that 6th grader, that's a really radical concept. And I think that at the core of what we do is that our 6th grader, our 12th grader, our 2nd grader who's in Girls Inc programming is starting to believe that she has the right to prepare for interesting work and economic independence. And that she can do that on her own, and that she can learn from professionals like Joan and the members of our junior board and everyone else that's here today. So I think that that's really extraordinary. And with that, our staff from day 1 of programming, we tell them that all of our programming, and programming is not just a curriculum that you use, but every interaction you have with your fellow staff members, or every interaction you have with an individual girl, is both intentional and compensatory. So when we say intentional, we say that means that the way you speak to a young person, the photos that you have on your wall, the video examples that you're using are representative and done with clear intention. Every activity you choose is done intentionally. And when we say compensatory, it's speaking to the fact, we're not just telling girls you can do anything and leaving it at that. We do believe our girls can and will do anything and everything. But we're recognizing the fact that our girls live in an inequitable world. We're not erasing the fact that racism and sexism and heterosexism and xenophobia and all the isms and phobias that you can think of exist. But what we're doing is we're saying that our programming is designed to compensate for those inequities. And it's designed to say that we're going to give girls the skills and tools to navigate the world and to not only survive in that world, but to thrive in that world, and use some of these pieces like this resilience that they've built as assets. So I think that that's really the most extraordinary thing about our programming. Now, how it translates to a specific program, I think that, we talked a little bit about, Pam spoke wonderfully about financial literacy, and I think that's really important. We have a program, we're the first program in the country for girls, for high school girls to learn data analytics. And now we're moving that on to middle school girls as well. We're now expanding our reach throughout New York City and throughout the nation. But a program like that, encouraging girls and building a pipeline for girls to go on to STEM fields, where 1/3 of our alumni are STEM majors in college right now. I think that's incredible work. But what we also see is we don't just do that from the lens of we're teaching them the hard skills that they'll need to go into these majors or to go into these career fields, but we're also doing this from a culturally responsive lens. We're using social justice, real-world problems for these girls to solve, so it relates to the work that
Do you ever listen to Melissa and when you listen to Melissa talk about what our girls are being exposed to, do you ever feel like you want that too? You want to be trained on that grit and that resilience and exposed to all those topics? A couple weeks ago, of course I'm going to lose my voice now, right? Last month, I had the opportunity to go into one of our schools, and Melissa was just talking about the data analytics program. So in one room, Andrea, one of our facilitators, was, working on data analytics, and I thought she was going to have the most boring PowerPoint. I didn't know it was going to be over my head. And instead, like Melissa said, she was talking about gentrification. And she was teaching the girls how something that was really important to them that they were faced in their community with, how they could use data and statistics to compel other people to listen to them. It was amazing. In the other room, Tiffaine was teaching the girls about sexual health. And so as a mom of 2 daughters, my head was spinning about the information she knew that I had no idea. But the way that Melissa said that is that about how they are such trusted role models, and they're not talking to the girls up here, they're talking to them like this. And that way the girls bring up these personal questions. It was just a really extraordinary experience to just see in action everything that I knew and believed, but see how the girls regarded and what a safe sanctuary it is for them. And the last thing I'll say about that visit is walking around the room, there was all these Post-it notes. The night before, Girls Inc had run a session. We heard of us talking about getting them through high school and getting them into college. And so it was a session about, okay, what's on your mind as we prepare you to go to college? What's making you excited? What's making you nervous? What makes you worried about when you go to college? So the Post-it notes written by the girls were both inspiring and heartbreaking. I was reading things like, my mom came to this country and she's given everything for my brother and I, and going to college means I'm changing all of our lives. To I'm getting really scared because none of my friends have the same dream of going to college as I do, and I'm worried it'll distract me. I am nervous that I won't have the financial means to keep up when I go to school. I am so excited to study and show the world what I'm made of. I mean, it just takes your breath away, reading these Post-it notes. So it's really real. This is our community. We live and work here. And getting to 10,000 girls is no small feat, and it really does require all of us. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you again to this amazing panel of remarkable women. And I also wanted to recognize the other voices from the book that are in the room. So I'd like to ask to stand Susan Axelrod, Zoe Barris, Jennifer Schuback, Sandra Altanay, I know I saw walk in, Laura, Michelle, Lori, Ashley, Teresa, Vartika, Kristen, Chelsea, and Carolyn are here with us in spirit. I can't wait till you read their stories. It's changed my lives, and I hope that what they've been through is something that's replicable in yours and really relevant for the change you want to lead. So I want to sort of wrap up with all of the gratitude that I have. I am where I am today because of the strong women in my life. And you heard me talk about my mom, Addie's grandma, who's here today. My mom is one of 5 women in our family. She has 4 sisters. And her youngest sister, my Aunt Patty, is my godmother, and her daughter, my cousin Margaret, is also here, who's been unwavering in her support. My sister, I would say, so Margaret and my cousin Maureen, who just went back to work after having 3 kids, they gave me all the opportunity to big sister them until I got my real moment, and all I wanted was to be a big sister. So my sister Jamie is a business owner herself, and so she means the world to me. And then being welcomed into Alex's family with my mother-in-law Rena. Where's Rena and her posse? Rena and my sister-in-law Dana are also fierce role models for my daughters and my niece Sophia, and also being an advocate in our communities, which is just as important as in our professional lives. So I am grateful to have all those wonderful role models and strong women around me. You know, I have a lot of incredible friends here that I'd be so scared, you know, to miss out on saying any of them, but obviously Becca, who's been with me forever, you know, Courtney, Brianna, Isabel, Leslie, Katya, Jen, Lauren. There's so many of you that have really held me up as I kept wanting to talk about this topic obsessively. My extraordinary team at Soul, Michelle, Ali, and Hillary, and Rochelle at Purposeful Platforms, you've been just amazing in helping me realize that we could do something with this. This isn't just a book. This is something where we want more women to speak up and help each other. And I have my incredible neighbors here in New York City to have Michelle and Sheena and Joan. You know, this is our community. We live in apartments, and to feel like you have family that show up for you and your kids, it's amazing. Of course, my partner Alex, who I'm sure you've seen running around like crazy to help pull this off tonight. Can you imagine being married to me? It's a lot, it's a lot. You know, there is the one thing that always stuck out to me that Sheryl Sandberg said was that one of the most significant career decisions you will make is who you choose as a partner. And man, I hit the jackpot. And I know that I could never have anything I dreamed about if I didn't have a partner that valued me as equally as Alex does. So. You know, this is the hard part, which is that, she's dying to come up here. You know, I wanted to close with how I dedicated the book. So I've got two daughters that I was blessed with, Juliet, who's home and asleep because she's 1, and Addison, who, don't say she's 5, she's almost 6. And I know that she's not gonna maybe remember everything that we said tonight, but what I wanted her to remember is that all of these people in the room came together because just like what my mom wanted for me, they want a brighter future for you so that you can dream anything you want, whether it's a doctor, mommy ballerina, or a pianist, lacrosse playing, coding scientist, all of which have come up lately, and that you can know that you deserve it. So that's what's most important to me and what's giving me energy in this work to come. So with that, again, I really appreciate and celebrate all of you for being a part of this. I hope that, like me, you're now in awe of this extraordinary organization, Girls Inc, and we have a lot of information out there, and Vanessa are running around with iPads if you want to donate. Yeah, do you want to say one more thing? Sure.
That now that I see Addison up here, I think, I didn't say it because I was talking too long, but another thing that's on everybody's mind is kind of the tail end of the Me Too movement. And so for Addison, for our daughters, for the girls we serve, let's make it our business to pass the ERA this year. It's long overdue. I think a lot of us are here for that, and because of women's rights, girls' rights, and let's see it happen. We can.
Okay, all right. So one thing I will ask is that if you read the book and you like it and you have something to share, Amazon reviews are really important. That helps me spread the word. So I'd be so grateful if you could review the book. Okay. And we're going to go back in the other room and we're going to cheers and we're going to celebrate. And I hope you get to spend time interacting with all these remarkable women that are here. So thank you to all of you for being a part of this journey with me. You should say something. You say something really fast.
Party.
Party time. That's what my daughter took away from us. All right, thank you, everyone.